a buzz across the world for Uganda, Parliament's latest legislation, passed in record time, but we also go beyond the borders of Uganda to discuss other political issues happening across the region and the continent.
NBS Frontline. It was bound to happen that nationals of any country struggling under high costs of living would eventually be pushed to the edge. Barricades, tear gas and water cannons on the police side, stones and goods printing abilities on the Protestants' front. The protesters led by Kenyan opposition leaders, including Azimio la Umoja, the police on the streets of Nairobi and its suburbs. Was this violent eruption of anger only about the pushingly high prices of goods, or are unresolved political scores returning to haunt Kenya as the price of ugali and fuel bite the biggest economy in East Africa? Her neighbor to the west is up in arms over homosexuality.
The intimidation I got today, but I thank God we have been strong. And I want to tell you, government has been very supportive.
Despite a Fox Odoi minority report arguing against Asumani Basarira's anti-homosexuality bill, the overwhelming support of those for the bill took the day.
Minority have examined the bill and are of the considered opinion that the bill is ill-conceived. It contains provisions that are unconstitutional. It reverses the gains registered in the fight against gender-based violence. That time in court. This time, you are not going to defeat us. We are defeating you in the House. We shall defeat you in court, and we shall defeat you in heaven. I support the bill to protect the future of our children. The
passing of this bill comes against the staunch disapproval of the international community on which Uganda heavily depends for aid, and already the threats couched in diplomatic language have begun. Is Uganda headed for uncharted waters? Will the president assent to the bill as is, or will he forfeit the local political game in favor of the international interests? Is Uganda ready for ramifications of passing a law that the West deems draconian? This is The Frontline. Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the NBS Frontline. My name is Charles Mwangu-Shampagi. Uganda is in the news all over the world. The main reason, because we have passed legislation to prohibit activities related to homosexuality. The Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2023. The principles of the bill and the object of the bill is to establish a comprehensive and enhanced legislation to protect the traditional family by A, prohibiting any form of sexual relations between persons of the same sex and the promotion or recognition of sexual relations between persons of the same sex, strengthening the nation's capacity to deal with emerging internal and external threats to the traditional heterosexual family. This legislation further recognizes the fact that same-sex attraction is not an innate and immutable characteristic. C, protecting the cherished culture of the people of Uganda, legal, religious, and traditional family values of Ugandans against the acts of sexual rights activists seeking to impose their values of sexual promiscuity on the people of Uganda. Protecting children and youth who are made vulnerable to sexual abuse through homosexuality and related acts. Defects in the existing law, because there is existing legislation dealing with unnatural sexual offenses. This proposed legislation is designed to address the gaps in the provisions of the laws in Uganda. For example, the Penal Code Act, Cap 120. The Penal Code Act, Cap 120, has no comprehensive provision catering for anti-homosexuality. It focuses on unnatural offenses under Section 145 and lacks provisions for penalizing the procurement, promoting, disseminating literature, and other pantographic materials concerning the offenses of homosexuality. As a result, there is need for legislation. This is the justification, and this is the bill promoted by Honorable Asumani Basalirwa. You've not seen the Ugandan parliament as full as it was. You've also not seen an animated debate with people who have spent 2.5 years in parliament, have never said a word, standing up to speak on the anti-homosexuality bill that was passed which was passed and is awaiting assent from the president to become a law. I need to remind our viewers that almost 9 years ago, the Parliament of Uganda passed a similar bill. It was assented to by the president and became an act of parliament, but its lifespan was short-lived. One of the people who challenged that legislation then is supposed to be joining us here, and hopefully will be joining us as we go on with the discussion. He has remained consistent in his opposition to this specific legislation. We'll also be discussing mega demonstrations in Kenya, in Nairobi City specifically, and other Kenyan towns, led by opposition politician Raila Amolo Odinga, who lost the election, but many people say by a small margin of 230 votes to William Samoei Ruto. We also saw demonstrations in South Africa, led by the Economic Freedom Party of Julius Malema. But on the same day, on 20th of March, there were demonstrations in 2 other African countries, including Algeria and I think Nigeria.
Senegal.
And Senegal, yes. What exactly is going on? What does that mean? We'll be discussing that on the NBS Frontline tonight. Now, the discussion around the anti-homosexuality bill is very emotive, is in some respects hysterical by those who debate it, and extremely radical by the different extremes that discuss it. So in discussing it, we must be very cautious. And as you send us messages, and the people on set, we must be sensitive to the high sensibilities that this attracts. I've seen tweets and comments from world leaders, the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and the rest of the Western world against Uganda. But I've also seen that there are at least 61 countries across the globe that have legislation against homosexuality. What does it mean for Uganda? What is the value add? Who is actually promoting homosexuality? Is it those against it, legislating against it, or those who are quiet? And then there's also a question of, is it nature or nurture? Are there people in communities in this country who have had tendencies of being gay or homosexual? How has community dealt with them over the years, and where does this bill present? Let me introduce in studio with me tonight, from Kira Municipality, from the Forum for Democratic Change, and a frontliner, the Honorable Ibrahim Ssemujju Nganda. Ramadan Karim, as they say.
Thank you.
Ramadan has begun today, so to all Muslim brothers and sisters, Ramadan Karim. Wish you a very happy and meaningful holy month of Ramadan. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you, Charles. And to all Muslims, Ramadan Mubarak.
Is it Ramadan Mubarak or Ramadan Karim? I need help.
It's the same.
It's the same.
Like
Okay.
saying, how are you? And someone saying, good morning.
Oh,
Ramadan is not only for Muslims, it's for all well-meaning people.
It is for only Muslims.
Okay, if you insist.
So you need to read the Quran, chapter 2, verse 183. When the Almighty God said Ramadan has been made compulsory
For practicing Muslims.
for you Muslims faithful. There is a tendency by friends like him who will say, can I join you, can I fast? But it is, in our faith, is compulsory. If there are others who want to do it, they can do it.
okay. Let me introduce Edgar Tabaro. Edgar Tabaro is an advocate of the courts of judicature, the High Court of Uganda, and all subordinate and higher courts. Edgar, very nice to have you.
Thank you.
And Edgar is an expert on regional politics, especially issues to do with the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, or Urundi as they call it. He's an expert. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mwangisha.
Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, let me start with you on the anti-homosexuality bill that you passed in Parliament. Did you vote for or against it?
I voted.
You voted?
Yes.
You voted yes?
Yes.
To pass the bill?
Yes.
You've seen the response internationally to this bill, but before we go to that, you've been strong on the floor of Parliament on one, the input of your colleague members of Parliament, the quality of debate. Were you surprised that for the anti-homosexuality bill you had a full house, that everybody was jumping to get to the microphone to make an input? Why is this so?
First of all, the most complicated part of Parliament is legislation, especially when you begin dealing with clause by clause of a bill. Some of the bills are of a technical nature, and once they are of a technical nature, people who have knowledge of a particular area will be the one driving Parliament. I remember when I was at Monitor, I don't remember which bill it was, but it had been moved by late Honorable Mayanja Nkanji. And the discussion for a bill of more than 100 clauses was between Mayanja Nkanji, Wapakabulo, and I think Ben Wacha. So the Parliament was on holiday just watching three people debate, and they were only offering them support. The anti-homosexuality is a bill that every MP understood, and it was dear to every MP. But with the exception of maybe 1, 2, 3 things, it was also not complicated. It was on a subject that every MP understands. And it is also a legislation that was public driven. When are you passing the bill? There are bills that we pass and the public doesn't. One time I was meeting border riders in my constituency, and I asked them if they are aware that there is a law called the Road Safety and Traffic Act, a law under which they are charged and fined and sometimes arrested. They were not aware. But I don't know of any Ugandan of average understanding who did not know that Parliament was dealing with the anti-homosexuality bill.
You must have done an analysis to justify, because the Minister of Finance declined to give Parliament a certificate of financial implication.
It delayed, but eventually it was...
You squeezed the hand of Finance to give you a certificate of financial implication, but the official position from Minister of Finance was that this bill couldn't get that certificate.
No, the rules of Parliament, if I'm not mistaken, Minister of Finance is given, I think, 60 days to issue a certificate of financial implication. If they don't, Parliament will go ahead and deal with the bill, with or without a certificate.
The bill so special.
I have told you, Charles, that this bill was also public driven. That's why, because earlier you were talking about the attendance. Today I didn't want, but also the latest development, I think have angered many people, especially the promotion of homosexuality in schools mainly. Because every parent looks at his children as the next victim. So I think the promoters of homosexuality, and one time I remember we had a discussion at a radio station. There are two gentlemen who came and they claimed that one was a woman, another one was a husband. We are with them on the show. These things never used to happen. Because sex...
So they've now come to the open. They've come to the mainstream.
I have not seen them since because maybe they didn't even know that it was an offense. But I have a feeling the Western world is the one that is making people bolder. It's not that people speak about it because they know they will defend them. It was for the first time in my life that I saw people claiming that I am a homosexual. This one is my wife, yet both of them were men.
How long ago was this?
Maybe about, it was during when we were debating the bill that was nullified by court.
So, Honorable Ssemujju, let's actually go back to that bill. In 2014, you were in Parliament.
Yes.
And you participated in the passage
And,
of
and, and I supported it.
Yes, an anti-homosexuality act.
Yes.
Sponsored then by the Honorable David Bahati.
Yes.
I saw him just a while ago saying that this time round, you and I are journalists, and the best way to promote something is to keep it in the news. So over a period of almost 10 years, you, sitting in Parliament, have kept the homosexuality debate in the public and almost normalized it. Do you think that this law you have passed can actually roll back the extreme publicity you have given to homosexuality?
You said you and I are journalists.
Yes.
And then you said the Parliament is keeping the homosexuality. Are we, you mean the editors are MPs?
No, you're debating. We report what newsrooms debate. What
is
you,
that the only is
report.
Is that the only law? Yesterday, Parliament considered the local content bill.
Yes, it's
why didn't it receive?
How many people attended the local content bill? Its passage in Parliament. It wasn't full house.
So in this, do you blame Parliament or you blame the media?
No, you are the one creating a law.
You see,
and some people say...
Charles, I don't want to go into journalism, but you know that controversy is going to receive higher publicity than ordinary things. The controversy about this law is that you have the Western world on one hand who are defending and even sponsoring, and you also have us, the Uganda, who are vulnerable, fighting back. But I have been in the media before, and I know all the stories about homosexuality are not published. I will tell you, there is a school I know where children of most of the elite go. It had a scandal. We nearly, there are things I may not want to say, but we couldn't do the story.
Why?
I have said we couldn't do the story because we will destroy the school. And we have a social responsibility not to destroy institutions, at least in the media. My training tells me to do so. If we did that story, that school would be destroyed. In fact, the stories that are in the media about homosexuality in Uganda, when you hear stories of children returning from schools, I think it is just a fraction. So this problem has been growing. I remember the first time we had a problem, because it was public, they will not be offended. I was at Masaka Secondary School, and children from St. Charles, Ruanga Kasasa, were expelled because of homosexuality. That was the first time that
How long ago was that?
A story. I was in secondary school more than 20 years ago.
More than 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Was that,
you were there in the 90s.
I said more than 20 years ago.
Was that a result of what you now describe as promotion, sponsorship?
It is possible. I didn't want to go into the details, but the schools that were being sponsored by mainly white people, they had a problem. They are the ones at the beginning that had that problem. I didn't want to go into the details because people will be offended. People went to those schools. But for me, that was the first time that I learned of that problem in schools. Today, I've told you there are schools where those stories will not be reported. So what made this bill very popular is the experience going through that. There's been a lot of pressure for Parliament to enact the bill. And I told someone who was telling me, you know, this bill presents nothing new. These things are in the penal code. And I told him, for me, even if there was only one word, anti-homosexuality bill, and there were no clauses, and they vote in Parliament, I will vote for it. That's what I told him. The times that we are in demanded that Parliament takes action. And there was going to be no listening to anyone. There was going to be no listening to any legal argument. That legal argument never had any chance. In fact,
is that your position too?
Yeah, that is my position. That is my position.
No legal argument would make sense.
It did not.
No argument would make.
No argument would persuade any MP, maybe with the exception of Fox or Doy, to abandon the bill.
Okay.
Even me, even if I've told you for my sake,
Even if the 2 words.
even if they brought a bill with only the title and homosexuality bill and there were no clauses, I would vote for it.
Honorable Dr. Chris Bariomonse, I hadn't introduced you at the beginning of the show. Yes. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be on the show.
We have a strong fan in your constituency. That lady who doesn't listen to English but watches the Frontline.
Yes.
I'd like to send her greetings as we start the discussion.
So she's
I'm
just
sure
happy
she-
to see
So she's a version of Ssemujju in as far as the homosexuality.
No, we have great
No
fans.
reason, no what, but
We have great fans for the show. No, the people who watch the show have reasons to watch the show.
Ssemujju had no reason. It was just
No, I've given you the reasons, but I've told you I was driven to support it. Even if the bill came with only the title without clauses, I would still vote for it.
Dr. Bayomonse, let me come to you straight with a question.
Yes.
I'm looking at some numbers here from the Uganda Police Crime Report. In 2021, the Uganda Police Crime Report indicated that there were 16,000 sex crimes or sex-related crimes in this country. A slight drop in 2022, 14,693. There were 13,826 child-related offenses.
13,000.
Yes, child-related offenses. Sex crimes.
That's post-COVID,
After, post-COVID.
Okay.
Sex crime. You say there's a significant drop in sex crimes post-COVID by a factor of almost 2,000 by the police statistics. Why all these crimes are serious, given the numbers? Why does homosexuality become such a big problem that you need to create a special law for it, not a special law for defilement, for example, not a special law for rape, for example, which are heterosexual sex crimes?
No, there are laws definitely dealing with the defilement and rape. Actually, in 2007, we even had to amend the penal code to provide for defilement. That's when we even introduced aggravated defilement and so forth.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly the point, Honorable Minister, before you go far.
Yeah.
The penal code provides for unnatural offenses in section 145. Why not just amend the Penal Code Act to strengthen provisions to deter this unnatural offense, but create an independent law for it?
No, it depends on how many provisions you are putting in the law. Now, like this one has many provisions. You are not going to put 20 provisions as you amend only one provision in the penal code. And there is no contradiction. That penal code is about 100 years old. While it provides years for homosexuality, there is no harm in coming up with a legislation which strengthens the penal code, the constitution, and other existing laws. So Parliament enacting a law on homosexuality does not contradict anything. It actually strengthens.
Honorable is a scientist.
Yes.
And is a public health expert.
Yes.
Is he speaking as Minister for National Guidance or
As a scientist.
as a scientist?
Both. I am
Okay.
speaking as a minister, as a member of parliament, as a scientist, as everything in the whole one. So what I'm saying is that the existence of a provision addressing an issue does not in any way stop Parliament from enacting a law. Like in this case, there are areas affecting the area of homosexuality which are not addressed in the penal code. These issues of recruitment, these issues of promotion, these issues of using digital technology to do recruitment and so forth, they are not captured in the penal code. So this law expands the horizon and captures different aspects of fighting homosexuality. And you see, homosexuality is a culture or a behavior cherished by societies in the West, but it is not our culture. Yesterday I published an article in the New Vision explaining the science of homosexuality. Homosexuals don't increase in number through reproduction, but through recruitment and promotion. And there is a very strong lobby. You see, in the Western world, they began as minorities. And when society, if I can say, harassed, even in America, they were harassed the Western world. I think they agreed, let's now do aggressive promotion in the Western world, but even we invade Africa and the rest of the world. So there is an aggressive campaign to recruit young people in schools. In 2004, I was working with the UNFPA, UN agency. Homosexuals held a conference in Jinja, and the government was actually not aware. A one-week conference. I got to learn of it from the UNAIDS coordinator who was like linking with them. I think he had, I don't know, that was a homosexual, a homosexualist. That's how I learned of it. And they did the conference and formed the task forces in all our universities in Uganda. So there is recruitment and promotion. And this law is saying no.
From a scientific point of view, Dr.
Yes.
Baryomonsi,
Yes.
Is it possible that people might naturally have tendencies,
Be inclined to
have tendencies that incline them to,
attraction to the same sex.
yeah? They call them, the acronym is gay, LGBT.
LGBTQIA.
Yes, lesbian,
Gay,
Transgender.
bisexual,
yeah,
transgender,
bisexual,
queer,
yes,
intersex,
yes. Are there
asexual. There is even a transbeast, TB, that there are those who are born human beings, but they believe they should have been animals. Can you imagine?
For the aspect of
You,
the gay,
you call it madness.
is there,
Yes.
Meaning it's deviance.
are
disorder.
is it possible from a scientific point of
exactly.
view that some people could be born with those tendencies?
I have personally reviewed the literature available about homosexuality, and I published part of it in a New Vision yesterday. There are studies which have been made and claims tried to put forward, like there was a study done on brains of cadavers. Cadavers are dead bodies, those who were homosexual and then those who were heterosexual. And the researcher tried to claim that the brains of those who were homosexual, the hypothalamus, which is part of the brain, is smaller in homosexuals. There was another study which was done on twins, to look at twins, whether if you are identical twins, whether if one is a homosexual, both of you are homosexual. There are studies done on hormones, whether it is the hormone is male and female, which explain. There are even studies done on the human chromosome and made some claims. But when you look at all these, there is no evidence to show that there is genetic
No
predisposition.
evidence or no conclusive evidence. Because science, a scientist should be very careful to make the statement you're
You want
making.
to argue with me on science? That one.
Okay, no conclusive
So
evidence.
I'm saying there is no credible, you can call it conclusive, but no credible evidence to link genetics or any other biological factors to homosexuality. Actually, when you look at the science of evolution, we argue that if homosexuality was genetic, then there would be evolutionary pressure on that gene. Homosexuals would have become extinct from the evolutionary science. So because they don't reproduce, they don't increase their numbers through reproduction. They only increase through mobilization, recruitment.
Okay.
This is science. So
Yeah.
that's the question of, is it in nature or is it nurture? From the medical science point of view, it is nature, the environment, rather than being a natural issue, being that you have a genetic or a biological reason, or that being born gay. No, and actually the committee had made a mistake because some doctor had misread the committee, and that's why he moved an amendment.
Association.
No, he came as
Those
an
who
individual.
represented there, but also the medical association.
Yeah, he came as an individual and said, I'm from the association. But I asked the technical people, did you ask him the qualification? Because you must also be fairly qualified to speak on some of these matters. So, there is no evidence to show that homosexuality is explained by genetics, genetic or any biological factor.
Dr.
It's more of the environment in which people live. So in other words, the conclusion is homosexuality is just a behavioral deviation.
Behavior deviation.
It's a behavior which is learned, which can also be unlearned.
Both
and there is
from,
evidence
both
to that.
from science and culture. Might you, at one time, growing up in Chigezi, come across people who were deviant, yes, to borrow your word, deviant by predisposition naturally?
Yes, we
Could
even
there
have
be a community of people like
we
that?
have a Chichiga Chinyankole word for the homosexual. They are called the Bitingwa. So meaning they have been there. Even the times of the Bible, when you read the Bible, there is reference to people having homosexual behavior. But that alone doesn't make it genetic or biological.
Do you have an idea from a scientific perspective what size of population that group you're talking about might be in this country?
In this country? Well,
There's no census that has been done.
we have not carried out studies really to ascertain the numbers, but what I know, there has been over the last number of years a lot of active recruitment, which may be subterranean, not visible to the naked eye, like Honorable Ssemujju is saying, but there has been mobilization in schools and so forth. And when you talk to our children, they will tell you what happens in schools. These NGOs, some of these civil society organizations, they do promotion. And that's why it becomes important for us to put a prohibitive law so that everybody knows that the position of this country, the position of Ugandans, that we do not condone homosexuality.
Edgar, let me come to you on the legality of this bill. A similar bill was passed in 2014. That's about 9 years ago. It was shot down by the Constitutional Court.
It was on the ground of quorum.
On the ground of quorum, yes.
Yes.
But
Actually, I can explain why there was no quorum.
Hold it a moment. I'll come back to you. Let me first put some questions to Edgar Tabaro. Does this bill passed by Parliament yesterday stand legal scrutiny?
The Republic of Uganda Constitution took a rather liberal approach towards human rights generally. And it's on that basis that I would like to look through the bill that was enacted into a law. There are provisions in that law that are clear and constitutional.
I'm sorry,
Yes, please.
the Constitution took a liberal.
A liberal
Approach towards human rights.
human rights.
Isn't there an article specifically banning same-sex marriage in the same Constitution?
He's building his argument. I think.
building
So
No,
that's how-
yeah, I want to benefit from his knowledge because I'm not
yeah.
a
I-
lawyer.
Yes, and that's exactly
I
what
don't
he's
know why
trying
he's
to go
running
to.
to
Please.
marriage. I'm looking
You
at
do a strong foundation.
by threatened the rate of divorces in the family division is alarming. The figures are alarming. But a liberal approach towards human rights, and there are provisions in this law that basically wouldn't stand the scrutiny of court, like the punishments, punishing persons who give treatment to homosexuals. That, in a way, is discriminatory against any.
Did we say they should not be
Did it come through?
I did not
I
hear
didn't see
it.
You did not hear it. You go. You know the provision by provision.
Yes, because
There was an NBS.
I have
That
Point,
must have been
bullet
maybe-
points that were on your
No,
bulletin.
we did not pass anything like that. That you give treatment to homosexuality. No, we did not give.
no, punishment.
Punishment for those who give treatment to the...
You provided,
No.
in the law you passed, a jail sentence for a media house
From media house,
that would be accused of promoting
promoting.
homosexuality.
We criminalized promotion, yes.
Yes, promotion. I haven't seen the definition for promotion in the interpretation section of the act of the bill. So far, I haven't seen that yet. What promotion would amount to? I have also seen sanctions against someone who provides accommodation, premises to people believed to be homosexuals. I also haven't seen exactly what.
Knowingly provides.
Yes, what exactly that would mean, but the others, you could just go ahead with your...
So broadly, I am looking at the justification and the sentiments of Ssemujju Nganda. I think the terrain that is emerging in Africa, I see also a similar approach in Ghana and subtly elsewhere in Africa besides Uganda. In Kenya, the Supreme Court there passed a ruling recently that took a liberal approach towards gay people and homosexuality. So in that regard, I think...
And Kenyans are not happy.
They're going to pass a law like Uganda.
They're going to pass a law like Uganda.
Yes,
So in a way, there is increase in homophobia in this region, mainly arising from what the Honorable Ssemujju Nganda has told us, the recruitment, which has been further buttressed by Honorable Dr. Chris Bagyomunsi, the way you pronounce it among the Swachiga, Bagyomunsi, that homosexuality numbers are enlarged by recruitment, because if they don't recruit, they will what? They will face, you called it
extinction.
So there's an existential threat against the minorities, and the way the minorities reacted was to go full throttle for recruitment. However, the stand that has been taken by the Republic of Uganda government, and considering our background in the other legislation of, was it 9 years ago, that was incidentally, the same person seated here were in Parliament at the time. I see our Constitutional Court taking the same liberal approach like they did in the other occasion, and they shoot down the provisions of this act. I don't see them departing from their previous position.
Why do you think so? They had quorum, they had prepared this better, it ran through Parliament quicker.
Incidentally, you see, at that time, even the judges, if you looked at the quorum of the judges at that time, there were people you would call conservatives. But over the years, the bench is also becoming, they're becoming more liberal in their approach towards some of these things. But much will depend on the position of the head of state, and he seems to have given his direction on Parliament. But the Ssemujju Ngandas of this world had a different approach, and they passed the law. And the minister who's representing government here seems to be representing also the government position, that the law passes that way, and if it's failed, then they'll pass another
There's
one.
agreement. This is one of those few positions that Parliament unanimously takes between members of the opposition and members of the ruling party. Doesn't that, what explains that from a Parliament that is traditionally has significant schisms?
Honorable Ssemujju has given a background to it, and I think being from the FDC and telling us that there have been persons who missed the session who think they should have been there, and expressing regret that they were not part of the proceedings. And he's given a background to it. I think it's much to do with the so-called recruitment, which in itself, even in the Western world where they are liberal towards gay people, pedophile and recruitment of children, or giving pornographic material to persons who are considered to be minor is an abomination. And
for the benefit of a viewer, pedophilia is what explain pedophilia? What is pedophilia?
Sex and pornography amongst children, persons below the
targeting of young
children,
people, children, for sexual
gratification.
Yes,
It's
for
a
sexual
psychosexual disorder. Where somebody gets
Honourable
that
Minister,
Yes, honorable. You see, even homosexuality is a disorder. It's a disorder.
So is that how?
behavior, it's a behavior.
It's a behavior disorder.
Yes.
And what determines behavior disorders?
You tell us.
You're the scientist here. The reason want to benefit from your expertise. What determines disorders?
No, it depends what the disorder you're talking about.
Okay,
We are
sexual
saying this.
disorders. There should be a normal distribution curve of sexual desires. If it falls outside, either on the high or on the low side.
No, there's a difference between what we would categorize as psychosexual disorders, like pedophilia, like coprophilia, people who get sexual satisfaction by sleeping with the dead bodies. It's a mental disorder of sorts. But this one is just a
A
disorder.
mental disorder, Honorable Minister, for our average viewer is a disease.
Yes.
It's a disease
Okay.
of the mind.
Yes.
A disease of the mind.
But here we are talking about sexual orientation, which is just behavior.
It's
behavior
perversion.
A behavior disorientation, where people just deliberately change their behavior. There is nothing like a pathological lesion within their body that causes that change, but just mere behavior, which even through counseling, somebody can just overturn. So you can learn and unlearn homosexuality.
Is it your position then that a threat of sanction can actually enable people to unlearn?
Well, more of counseling at an individual level, not on a large scale because of threats, but requires counseling an individual
where is the
to
place
abandon
for,
that kind of behavior.
where is the place for sanctions of 20-year jail terms for people who can be cured by counseling?
We are talking of sanctions, the penalties which we put.
Yes.
Yes, if you are charged and
You'll abandon homosexuality.
yes, that sentence plus counseling can make people turn. Yes, there is evidence of people who have been gay, who have been lesbians, who have been homosexuals, who have abandoned and turned into normal life. Actually, most of the homosexuals here in Uganda, they are bisexuals. You find these happily married.
That's right.
They're happily married because they want money.
Not necessarily money,
Yeah.
sexual gratification, perversion.
No, just hold on. You find somebody is happily married, but because he knows if he says he's a homosexual, he'll get money. Because of economic reasons, he becomes a homosexual. That's how I'm saying. It's
That's
just
the other point I wanted to
more
ask
of behavior
about.
than.
Actually, there is an emerging trend that many gay bashers are actually closet gay people.
Because one would ask, how come most homosexuals are in urban areas and are educated, and you don't find them in Kanungu, in a rural area? If it was, if it was genetic, then there would be that distribution. You find them
wouldn't you
everywhere.
say that most Bitingwa would be in Kanunga, not in Kampala? Why would what would explain?
Now, I was saying,
existence.
if it was indeed genetic, that the people are born gay and the gene pool is passed on, maybe through reproduction and the offsprings, then you would find a distribution. But you look at even Uganda, if you were to carry out a census of where the homosexuals are, it's mainly in the urban areas, maybe in schools because of the promotion. But you will not find them in your Kawarole, in Kanungu, in Karamoja, in the north. So even
There's a question
distribution itself, and even finding them among the elites, the educated, it tells you it's more of recruitment and promotion rather than the biological explanation.
Some people have asked that the bigger driver for the passage of this bill, and Honorable Ssemujju explained it well at the beginning of the show, was largely the moral position, not the scientific, but the moral position. And people asking questions saying, why does homosexuality become a bigger moral threat to this society than other moral questions?
Other moral questions.
And you just said it, Honorable Minister, that some people are driven by money. And money is because service delivery gets limited because the money gets stolen in corruption. Why haven't you, as leaders, especially sitting in Parliament, put as much energy into dealing with other moral issues?
Now you are getting confused yourself. Don't go over now losing money, corruption, and so forth.
Yes.
No, the moral issue, it means, and we have made that point in the Parliament, that the homosexuality is alien to our culture, to our norms, to our ethos, to really our establishment, our values.
And corruption is not? Is not alien?
Now, you want us to discuss corruption?
No, I'm asking a
homosexuality?
question. I'm asking.
Of course, passing a law against homosexuality doesn't mean we should not pass laws and fight corruption. Those are two different things, and I don't think they are related. We are saying homosexuality is foreign, is alien to our culture and our customs. And we are saying there is a visible tendency for the Western world, for foreign people, to impose this behavior on Ugandans and on Africans. And we're saying, no, if your society is in the West, cherish homosexuality, so be it. But do not impose those foreign
value
behaviors
systems on us.
On ours. Absolutely.
Let me take a message.
Some other countries go to the extreme, like Qatar, say you're not the spokesperson for humanity. That's what they're telling the Western.
Okay.
The Western world.
Let me take some very, very interesting messages. Boaz Musenguzi is watching us from Entebbe, and he says, even thieves could be born with tendencies of stealing. Do you stop fighting crime or theft because they are born that way? I hope...
no, he's right. So he's saying even if science has said they are born homosexual, there will still be justification to fight that way. It's what he's saying.
I hope Edgar will provide an answer. Someone else here, I don't know who this is, says, good question about deviance. Ask Dr. Chris Bariomus, tell us about inborn hormonal imbalance. Specifically, a woman with a beard or a man with breasts. Is this learned? This is in regard to transgender people. Do they have control over their less testosterone?
Testosterone.
And more estrogen. Semenya, Castor Semenya?
Castor Semenya in South Africa.
In South Africa. Someone could, that's a question I hope
we
we'll
have
get an
had
answer
cases
for.
of transgender people here as well.
Someone says Parliament used its mandate and passed, what is this? Parliament used its mandate and passed the anti-homosexuality bill, which is probably yet to become an act. If you critically look at the Uganda police report of 2022, defilement and rape are doing more harm to Uganda's children than homosexuality. The country has serious vices of child marriages, forced marriages, etc., and the majority of the perpetrators are heterosexuals. My plea to those men and women in Parliament is that they should use the same energy and love to fight against all those other vices, including sex with a person below 18 years, child and forced marriages and defilement.
Yes, and we are using that energy.
Yes.
To fight
Another
those crimes
person
as well.
called Kenneth Kiamlesire is watching us from Bohesi in Bunyangabo district, says, thank you for tonight's episode of Frontline. For starters, issues to do with homosexuality are already addressed by the relevant laws in place via the penal code. As a country, we already have more than enough problems to address. Homosexuality is not one of them, even in the remotest sense. Our honorable members of parliament want to add a glaringly avoidable problem onto Uganda's plate. The West is aware that the legislation in place already addresses homosexuality issues adequately, and they are at peace with that. By our honorable members bringing up this bill, they are in a way waking up sleeping dogs, and the resultant consequences, economic sanctions, will plunge the country into even more trouble. That's Kenneth Kiamlesire. We need to take a break, and when we return, we'll pick up this conversation.
NBS Frontline.
The Chillax bundles from Airtel have been upgraded. Introducing Voice Chillax bundles. No validity, no expiry, no worries. Dial *100 *1#, select voice bundles, and choose your preferred Voice Chillax bundle today. Talk longer with loved ones across Uganda with Voice Chillax bundles that don't expire. Airtel, the smartphone network.
It doesn't matter where we are. We bring it wherever we go because space doesn't determine our expression. Our moments are golden, timeless, and enjoyed in Mpola because Mpola Enjoyments is about our crew, our vibe, and our beer. Bell Lager, fresh vibes, Impala enjoyments.
Better steady, be better.
7 out of 10 of us have lost a substantial amount of money to fraudsters. Money we could have used to pay rent, invest in small businesses, clear fees, or send to mama in the village. Better steady and protect what's yours by being vigilant with your virtual transactions. Keep your PIN to yourself and only take calls from registered customer care numbers in case of telecom issues. Better steady, be better.
Haven't you downloaded Start Times On?
Haven't you downloaded Start Times On? Haven't you downloaded Start Times On?
Haven't you downloaded Start Times On?
Haven't you downloaded Start Times On?
Haven't you downloaded Start Times On?
What is the Start Times On? It's a mobile app.
Save on data bundles.
Watch videos.
Save on data bundles.
Watch videos.
Save on data bundles.
Watch videos.
Start Times On, a data-saving video app used by more than 50 million people in Africa. Search Start Times On from Google Play or App Store. Watch video anytime, anywhere. Download now.
Work, work, work. Work's over. Busy Bite, get down to snack business. When snacking is under attack, we'll be there to fight back.
In the heart of Arua City is an oasis of class and comfort. Welcome to Hotel Le Confidential, Aruba's hidden gem and a hub of world-class service. Hotel Le Confidential is a boutique hotel like no other. Voted Uganda's best new hotel at the Ekuka Awards 2022. Our amazing rooms come with air conditioning for internet and breakfast. Take a dip in our outdoor pool, relax at the spa, enjoy a tasty bite from our wide array of delicacies, or simply spend an incredible evening here just to wake up to the gorgeous green of Aruba and so much more. We are open 24 hours to serve you. Hotel La Confidential, a place of serenity, peace, and love.
You're still watching NBS Frontline, and we're discussing the latest bill passed by Parliament, which is the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2023. Harry Sagara watching us says, Charles, please ask Dr. Baryomonsi how they intend to police this vice. Sex is a private thing. Are we going to have a policeman in everyone's bedroom policing this vice? At what cost is the evidence going to be gathered? I think homosexuality can be cured by society. We do not need to pass a law over this. Society will deal with the homosexuals. I think Parliament should concentrate on more pressing issues that affect this country. Homosexuality is not one of them.
But you see, there are people who, I don't know, I'm trying to find a polite way. We had a bill which was passed. Do they think Parliament is going to close and go home? That the only thing it will do in 5 years is that law? That should more pressing things.
You have time for the other pressing things.
Today we are in Parliament. Tomorrow we'll be in Parliament, and another day.
3 weeks.
Yesterday, the law on local content was passed.
And we shall pass many more laws.
And someone says, no, more pressing things.
That issue of policing, we have created many offenses. Recruitment, promotion, renting out your premises knowingly, when knowing that people are going to use it for homosexuality, practicing homosexuality. So there are many. So the issue of how it will be enforced is not a problem. Somebody was saying hormones. It is not true that the explanation is on hormones. Actually, studies have been done, both adult hormones, even prenatal hormones. And the conclusion is male hormones, female hormones have nothing to do with the sexual orientation.
Okay.
Otherwise, people who have endocrine deficiencies, say excessive hormones or deficient hormones, would be showing these behaviors of sexual orientation. Studies have been done in humans, in rats, the evidence is not there. So therefore, homosexuality is not explained by...
Where do you place people like
hormones.
the athlete Caster Semenya of South Africa? What kind of...
What does it do?
Huh?
What
By
is it?
transgender.
What did she herself say?
What did he say?
What some people do,
Well, she
they
was
start
participating.
injecting.
Was
She
it
was
a
participating.
he?
What some people do,
Yes.
they just
she was
inject
participating.
themselves with the,
Well,
these
Caster-
hormones, because if you inject yourself with the excessive doses of the female hormones, you may develop features
Caster
suggestive that you are a female.
Caster
But doesn't mean
Semenya
that you
is
are
a
born
South
homosexual.
African athlete.
Yes.
She identifies as female.
But,
But
has hormones of
She
of
appears, her physical look,
She identifies or she is female?
she's female.
Yes.
But her physical appearance is malish, if I can use that. That I think the Olympics of 2012,
Yes.
I think 2012 Olympics, they subjected her to a gender test.
Gender test.
Because,
And revealed she had more testosterone than...
No,
yes,
you-
but she's female.
You see,
So-
there are those who may want to inject themselves with synthetic hormones. Yes, that can change your morphological outlook, because if you injected somebody with a male hormone, it may develop features of a male by growing beards, but that does not change your sexual orientation in
Honorable
itself.
Minister, the example I'm giving
Yes.
is of a person born that
Yeah,
way.
you see, Charles,
in a-
you'll need to read the law.
Yeah.
The reason
This-
that's why
this
Charles is
law-
bringing it up, she has been a major bone of contention.
Yeah,
in South
but
African
that's
athletics.
why I'm explaining,
Athletics.
Charles. The law that we made explains who a male is by their sexual organs. It doesn't matter whether you look like a female.
Look
If you
like
don't
female.
have that sexual organ, you are not.
I have
You
read the
see,
book, Honorable Ssemujju.
I can bleach myself and change my skin,
oh,
can
Honorable
look like a
Ssemujju,
female.
I have
You can
read-
what?
But that doesn't make me
Honorable
female.
Dr. Mario, you can do what?
I can start changing my face and...
He said bleaching. What does bleaching
Even
have to do with sexual
I
orientation?
have seen a book.
To physically appear like I am a female, but that will not make me a female.
I've seen a book that I would
Yes.
encourage all of you to read. It's called From Juliet to Julius. Of a Ugandan, hold a
if
minute.
it is
Hold
about,
a minute.
If it's about promotion, me, I will not
Hold a
read.
minute.
Don't invite me.
Hold a minute.
Yeah.
From Juliet to Julius,
Written by a homosexual maybe.
written by a Ugandan who was born looking and was told to behave and act female because his parents,
She.
no, his parents,
What sexual organs does he
his
have?
parents couldn't identify, and the hospital where he was born couldn't identify what gender he belonged to. He went to Gayaza Secondary
Yes,
School,
I remember that case, yeah.
studied.
The issue
Finished.
is, what sexual
Hold a
organs did
minute,
he have?
hold
No,
a minute,
later,
yes.
later,
Let
later
me
the
bring the story.
Male sexual organs became more pronounced.
At the age of 24, that's when he had his doubts. He didn't know where to belong. He studied. At the age of 24, that's when he chose and said, I am actually more male
Than female.
than female. But his parents bought for him clothes for girls. As a baby, took him to school for girls, behaved like a girl.
No,
Where do you
not
think-
really.
No.
He had some deviant. He used to shower alone. Or
Yes, because he didn't.
At that time, and didn't.
apparently, the explanation, the story that this gentleman tells, he actually grew beard.
Grew a beard,
yes. The story he tells is that for him, he didn't have male or female.
They were not pronounced.
They were not pronounced.
They were not more pronounced than the other. The way
Yes. So,
still suppressed.
where do you place,
in
from
development.
science, where do you place a person like that?
Yes, you can be born with the anatomical defects. Maybe the genitalia is not well developed.
Yes.
So, but the relevant question you would ask is, as he was growing up, where was his sexual attraction? You will find he was attracted to females because eventually he showed as a male. So the issue of whether the
But
genitalia
attended
well
the girls'
developed,
school.
So
An
he didn't take
exclusive
himself
girls'
to school.
He attended
His
an
parents-
exclusive girls' school.
His parents and the community around him chose a school for him, imagining he was a girl.
how was he passing urine?
He used to do it.
And what kind of organ?
Even
sexual
with
organ did he
showering,
have?
he used to do it alone when others were not.
Because
those who were,
but he must have gone to hospital.
Yeah, but for me,
I mean, it's a story.
What I'm saying, you can
no,
be born with
saying
undeveloped organs.
Well,
but what we are speaking about is the sexual attraction.
The
Whom
question
are
I'm
you
trying to
attracted
put,
to sexually
the question I'm trying
as
to
you
put
grow?
is how
Charles,
does this
I
law
have,
not catch a person like Julius in that mix?
Charles, I have a problem.
He has a
with
crisis of identity. He has a crisis, he has that trauma to deal with. And now there is a law that says you can be punished.
What
you can't be
what you're claiming to be.
Homosexuality is a behavior, not the physical appearance per se. We are speaking about behavior in terms of sexual attraction.
You are penalizing sexual attraction or the acts of
you see, the trouble that
getting
I have,
involved in what we call unnatural sex.
the trouble that I have,
yes,
you see, this is definitive, and this is what gets these laws shot down.
Yes.
And you start blaming the lawyers and the judges for the problem is with these people.
Let's first hear what Honorable Ssemujju has to say.
You see, the trouble I have with the direction that the debate is taking, where you want us to be involved in an academic discussion. I want anyone to tell me that he has not heard there is recruitment of children in schools into homosexuality.
Before you go into that.
And that Parliament was dealing with a non-existing problem. Like I think Sagar was trying to suggest.
I want to pick it from a representation done by a fairly a very well-respected academic and legal scholar, Professor
Sylvia
Tamale. She came to Parliament. She made a representation. And she said she begged Parliament not to legislate to disappear a community. And she posed a rhetorical question she answered herself. And she said, should there be legislation against sex criminals, pedophiles? And her answer was absolutely. She said, should there be legislation that, she raised a number of questions in her submission to the Committee of Parliament.
You see, that's the point.
Where do you place?
That's the point I make.
Where does it place?
That's the point I make, Charles.
Yes.
That tonight you're inviting us to be engaged in an academic discussion.
Shouldn't Parliament have been engaged in an academic discussion before passing that?
What Honourable Ssemujju is saying is that there's a recruitment of children for a certain lifestyle, and as parents, as custodians of, I don't know whether you're custodians, as parliamentarians, it's their duty to make laws to
Maybe
preserve.
the question you should ask, is the problem of homosexuality real in Uganda or it's imaginary?
Yes, which is a position that, the position you're talking about, that Honourable Ssemujju is propounding, is a position every Ugandan supports.
So
children, and the argument that Dr. Sylvia Tamale and the other activists they went with were arguing, were saying, do not protect all children, male or female, from every form of sexual offenses.
No problem.
And the police statistics are indicating to you here that heterosexual crimes, 16,450 something in 2021, 14,000 of them against the girl child. Where are those protections?
But that's the freedom of the argument. Who has told you Parliament is not addressing all those issues or won't address them?
I have a problem. I remember I went to Norway about 22 years ago, I think.
Oh, as a journalist?
Yes. And at that time, they were debating that their population was now growing negatively.
Decelerating, yeah.
They were even offering incentives for people to produce.
Free nursery education.
They are not producing. And instead of men marrying women to produce, they are now saying men should marry men. The homosexual will disappear society, will disappear human life. If we continue treating it as a simple matter, like some messages are saying, that there are more hard pressing things. I was in Geneva, I think, and those white people, intelligent as they are, I remember our guide told us that, you see, in our city, it is not even a child, it's not even a child per family, that's not even average. we have no time to produce, we have no time to do this and that. Those behaviors there, they work. They have experimented everything. In fact, for me, that's the only thing that I agree with Museveni. I think the whites have finished everything on earth. Now they are things that are not imaginable. They can continue on that road. For me, the problem of homosexuality, especially the recruitment, because if they went there and we didn't even know they exist, it would not be a national problem.
With them.
But I have told you, I was at a radio station when two boys came, and one said, I am the wife, this one is my husband. And they had paid for that program at a radio station to come and begin speaking in favor of homosexuality. For God's sake, that we will not allow in Uganda. They can go and have programs in America, and men marry men and women marry women. If they finish, the white people will go and occupy those countries. But in Uganda here, we are a religious country. There is no way we are going to surrender our children.
Uganda is a religious country?
We are.
It's secular.
We are. What does our motto say?
Forgotten my country. Let me read.
It says we are secular.
I hear what you say.
So this problem, I don't want anyone to even imagine that we are dealing with it. We are just an excited lot that is dealing with an existing problem.
Many people believe that you're ballooning in other ways, not significant problem.
No, it was becoming significant.
What have they
Let me take a message from Kojo Matthew. Kojo Matthew is watching us and says, I agree with Honorable Dr. Baryomonsi about the issue of distribution. How come there are no cases of gays in the rural areas? And for the issue of foreign funding being frozen because of the anti-gay bill, we as Africans would rather suffer and die, but with dignity. Interesting take from, let me see. Yes, I have a message here. It's a longer, yes. Thank you, Honorable Abdu Katuntu has shared the amendments, proposed amendments to the bill. This is before it was passed. But it's 20 pages, so I may not be able to go through all of it now. But thank you very much for sharing. I'll go through it and I'll share with our audience. Honorable Abdu Katuntu for sharing. Thank you for sharing this message. Someone else here says, by the way, the issue of recruiting kids into homosexuality, how true is it? I haven't seen anyone arrested for the same.
Cool.
Honorable Ssemujju, do you have a response to this? Why haven't these recruiters and promoters been arrested?
I have not.
You didn't say teacher somewhere in Jinja, one of the schools being arrested.
It was a head teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, but even if those are...
No, but that was community. Yeah. That was community reacting.
Which is
clawback from community.
So meaning we are not discussing an abstract thing.
That is agreed. And
something real which we must address.
There's another argument the likes of Baryomunsi have been making.
Yes.
Is that, for instance, we are heterosexuals. Why don't we go pronouncing ourselves everywhere on radio? Not even saying we're heterosexuals. Why do the people with a different sexual orientation have to put it in people's faces if it's a private matter?
I want anyone...
as you do, Honorable Ssemujju, let me read this message for you because it's addressed to you. Homosexuality is not Uganda's problem. I am surprised that Honorable Ssemujju has been asking the Speaker about iron sheets and has never got an answer, and now he thinks the problem of Uganda is homosexuality. People like Honorable Ssemujju who used to discuss issues of late, he has turned out to be, what is this? In fact, according to the law, to the new law, all of you in studios should be taken to court because you are promoting. Is that the position?
First of all, the law...
No, we are not promoting. Have we told you to practice
You see, the iron sheet are not because there is no law. In fact, you have followed what is happening. I am only demanding for the answers because the law exists.
Honorable Ssemujju has actually been saying there's no need for an investigation. We already have confessions.
But we have given you the answer that an investigation is going on, and once it's complete, the law will take its course. That's the answer from government on iron sheets.
So if you look back at this question, how do people like us discussing this issue survive this law, the way it is framed?
Of course, I think that argument can be made by the lawyer. you will discuss rape.
The legislators,
I don't think when you are discussing rape on the show here, you're going to be...
you become a rapist or promoting rape.
You're promoting.
No, well, there's no law against promoting rape.
People are going...
There's a law against promoting homosexuality, and it targets the media.
Yeah, because that's the point I made earlier. That I have never seen anyone going to any school to recruit children to become rapists. At least I have never heard that story.
So in the law you passed,
yes,
what is the definition of promotion?
Publication, broadcasting, showing films, all those go into... They are also offenses.
Doesn't just justify what the viewer has just said, that all of us should actually be jailed.
No, there is
under the law.
There is nobody on this show who is saying that please homosexual is very good. At least me and the Bariomus have said it is not. If the two of you are not clear,
we have not tried it, so we can't.
If the two of
we
you
have nothing to compare.
If the two of you are not clear,
we can put you on the spot.
Yes.
Do you condemn homosexuality or not?
We have not tried it. We have not tried it to make comparison without honorable Ssemujju.
So if you attempt to rationalize it, it will be up to you. Me, I have told you, even if they brought just the title saying anti-homosexuality, I would vote for it. I know in the media, because of the nature of the media, you want to ask these questions. Any media person will ask these questions. But you must also be very careful because the law now exists. So if you appear like you are promoting, then you will be charged.
The problem, you have had a problem with the Public Order Management Act, for example.
Yes.
And the way police has interpreted it.
It has been stricken down as unconstitutional.
What is the risk that this law you have passed can be interpreted in a manner that infringes on rights of otherwise innocent people? For example, the media.
I made the argument when we were in Parliament. I was personally uncomfortable with cancellation of license and suspension. And I said, you see, a media organization is bigger than either
the editor or the producer. True, yes.
And my argument was, please go for that person, don't go for the institution.
So you can.
But I lost.
Yes. So you threw your former colleagues in the media under the bus.
No, he says
I've said I lost. I made the argument.
You made an attempt. But the law is passed, and you can't know where you draw the line.
No.
So
you can go and challenge that particular section, but I don't invite you to challenge the others because you lose me along if you attempt to challenge the others.
But you lost me already. As a media practitioner, you lost me already.
No, that
How many times can we lose each other?
Challenged. That particular section provision that criminalizes media institutions, I am uncomfortable with it. And I raised the concern yesterday as we are dealing with the bill, but I have told you I lost.
What else in the law you passed?
That will be legitimate to go to court.
What else in this law you passed are you uncomfortable with?
No, that's the only
areas
provision
that you lost.
The rest I am very happy. The only problem I had was criminalization of institutions when it comes to media. But the rest I am very happy. If you are recruiting, if you are promoting, an individual journalist, if you take it upon yourself to host a show, a news bulletin, and you are promoting homosexuality, they should arrest you. Yes, and I will be a witness if they invite me.
Honorable Ssemujju, I'm hosting a show.
Yes.
If the Uganda Communications Commission or some other enthusiastic person files a complaint,
yes,
and NBS says, the media institution is promoted by your argument, you go and deal with your issues. Why should I be thrown under the bus by your law?
If the media organization says, why shouldn't you? Because I have told you, in the past, 2 gentlemen appeared at a radio station, and I later established that they had actually paid for that program to come and promote. Paid the station or to the individual? Paid the station to come and promote homosexuality. This law now will not allow that.
Were they not a group as a media practitioner that deserved to be heard? They were not promoting, so they had concerns and they needed to be heard.
So tomorrow we should get a group of rapists to come here.
You used to interview Joseph Kony. Why didn't you want them to be also?
But you know that
I did interview Vincent Oti on the KFM hot seat several times, and ideally by the interpretation, what you're giving to this law, I should have been held personally liable for that criminally.
The law of misprision of treason also exists. You cannot claim that I'm a journalist, I'm interviewing OT as he moves to go and demolish and destroy a village, that you go along with him you will also be charged.
But is
So-
it right to charge journalists for reporting?
Well,
That has
and
always
to
been the
charging,
argument.
doesn't this law
You see,
expose
if-
journalists to being charged for simply doing their job and reporting and giving every side out there an opportunity to be
I
heard?
am fearing to take that line because I have had difficulties with the radio station in Rwanda during the genocide. And the argument was that this particular radio station was promoting genocide.
The radio mails Colin.
Yes.
He's
So
the expert.
what would you have done about yeah, what would
You
you,
know,
what would
Well,
you-
there's
what
another
would,
radio, but
what would you
there's no
do
time to raise
what
those
would you
issues
do
here.
in that case if a radio station chooses to begin promoting a hate crime, to begin promoting genocide? Once something has been pronounced as an offense, I don't want any journalist to hide under it.
But Honorable Ssemujju,
Yes, because an offense has been
and gentlemen,
created
forgive me, because
that we must not use our platforms to
yes,
promote
we're discussing the
homosexuality.
space that the media occupies.
So
And Honorable Ssemujju, with his background,
Honorable Ssemujju, one of the
you're
biggest
aware.
laws he has
Yes.
been arguing against, even as a journalist, was on the sectarian law.
Yes.
And I remember him one day, he had
No,
been
no.
summoned many times.
I actually
many times to
sectarian law
police. And
practices
there's
of
a time you refused to answer summons, and you said Kataratabi was the one in charge of
Yes.
and you said he has your email. You put your email address that he can send the summons.
yes.
But you were promoting an offense of,
Yes.
of sectarianism.
I was accused.
Honorable
Of
Ssemujju.
sectarianism.
Yes, I was accused.
But you were
Your
mentioning
experience
sectarianism.
as a politician in the opposition,
Yes.
you've had experiences of RDCs interpreting the law the way they want, shutting down radio stations or closing you out of radio stations. You've had police arresting or stopping rallies of the opposition because of that interpretation
Charles,
issue. What is the exposure this law exposes? I mean,
of course, that risk exists. And if you invite us to be very careful, yes, I will join you. Because when you're passing the POMA, Public Order Management Act, the part of the reason we lost the argument was that we are advancing the same view that this law is bound to be misinterpreted. The law itself, if it's not misinterpreted, actually, it has no problem. We will then need to deal with people who misinterpret laws, because sometimes they actually act with or without law. I mean, we make a law like the anti-homosexuality, thinking that maybe they will not misinterpret it. Especially when it comes to the media.
From experience,
but I've told you,
process.
In my own case, I was extremely careful about the section on the media, and I tried to persuade the parliament, but I failed. What you people who are in the media doing journalism need to do is to go and seek for an interpretation. There, please invite me, I'll go with you. But if you want to challenge the anti-homosexuality bill, please do not invite me. Because I supported the law. Even if they nullify it and they bring it next week, I will support it 100%.
Okay, we need to take a break. But let me take a message from Aaron Ainomjsha. He's in Imbarara City. He says the biggest concern should be whether the Anti-Homosexuality Act will be implemented, or it will join other laws that are being flouted due to the terrible levels of corruption in Uganda. We can't pretend to be mitigating Western culture socially, yet it's living with us economically, academically, and politically. European history is compulsory at A level for history students in Uganda, and our children still study about Napoleon, who died 203 years ago. Yet ICT and economics are optional. Political bandwagonism in Uganda. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the riots or the demonstrations in Nairobi, Kenya, and in South Africa.
Not every protest is a riot.
Yes, the protest. That's why I corrected myself.
NBS Frontline. Wondering how the nation gets its budgeting done? MPs review and pass national budget after a thorough analysis of funds allocated to all sectors by the Ministry of Finance. Parliament examines all the revenue and revenue expenditure proposals made by the government and makes recommendations on them. Your Member of Parliament is your representative. Make your voice heard. This message is brought to you by the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda.
Body of Mr. Namdi Wokiji was found at a beach house this morning.
When was the last time you saw Namdi? At a party. Did you notice anything strange about last night?
Are you taking money from my mother for this wedding?
Shouldn't be looking at that.
Ichi killed my son, and I want the world to know it.
Better steady, be better.
7 out of 10 of us have lost a substantial amount of money to fraudsters. Money we could have used to pay rent, invest in small businesses, clear fees, or send to mama in the village. Better steady and protect what's yours by being vigilant with your virtual transactions. Keep your PIN to yourself and only take calls from registered customer care numbers in case of telecom issues. Better steady, be better.
NBS Frontline.
We'll be switching topics to discuss the demonstrations in Kenya called by the opposition, and in South Africa also called by the opposition, and how they were dealt with. I want to start with Edgar Tabaro. The demonstrations, you and I have had discussions in the studio about the Kenyan elections before. Did you see turning out the way it has turned out, and can Raila Odinga sustain his latest push?
Very much so. I mean, if you followed Raila like I have, I started following Raila Odinga in 1990 when I was doing my P7 at Nakasero Primary School. We used to get, remember the Kenya Times, edited by the late Phil Pocheng. Remember Phil Pocheng, that columnist in the East African and the Daily Nation? As such, I started following him very early. As such, he became an enigma, and I did some more studies about him. What we are seeing is the trademark Raila. Since the time he was teaching at the University of Nairobi, in 1982, his name was adversely mentioned in the coup attempt that had been orchestrated by junior Luo Air Force officers. He did the deal and went into, well, they say he did the deal behind the scenes, but he was put in solitary confinement for about 8.5 years. He's released. 1990, they established the Forum for Return of Democracy in Kenya, together with his father, late Ken Matiba, Mwai Kibaki, Kijana Wamalwa. You remember that formation. Just before the elections in 1992, he had caused a split into Ford Kenya and Ford Asili. And after the split, the Ford Kenya, I think, went to the Kenyan, mainly the Luo, rather the Kikuyu clique, in the Ford formation. They went for Ford Asili. He wrestled Ford Asili away from Kijana Wamalwa and formed his NDP, National Development Party. And remember, at that point when he was doing all that, he fell out with his father. And they had a public spat captured on television where his father chided him and mentioned.
And the father is Jaramogi Oginga
Jaramogi
Odinga.
Oginga Odinga. 1997, he contests, loses. He forms what they call a cohabitation with KANU. By 2001, Raila had formed an alliance with KANU and became its Secretary General, ousting John Kamotho, who had served as Secretary General for very long. So when he becomes Secretary General, what does he do to Kanu? He splits it. And the persons who were previously serving to Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka, there was Kalonzo Musyoka, there was, which other names were there? The big names that left to go and form NAC. And remember,
the
even with
National Rainbow
the
Coalition.
Rainbow Coalition, even with NAC, Raila was not very comfortable. It's because he realized he couldn't stand against the tide of Kibaki Tosha. So he joins NAC. Within 3 years of NAC, he splits and goes away with other people. He comes back in 2008 as minister, prime minister. By then, remember, under Moi, he had served as cabinet minister he came in as a cabinet minister before he became secretary general for energy. Minister for energy. Remember, he shared the ministry with Chris Okemo at that time. They had a rare system where 2 cabinet ministers would be posted to the same ministry to accommodate
the political divide.
The political divide and the mergers, the alliances that were being made. Remember, Moi used to rule as a minority.
So,
fast forward. Yes. Raila's approach has been one of rabble-rousing, and which is doing on this occasion.
What is he trying to get out of William Ruto?
I told you when we're having those discussions on the election, when he went to court, people go to court for many reasons. And for a person with Raila's background, you go to court, one, to forestall the tensions, to allow people some cooling off period, because the petition has to be heard, it's on television, you see arguments before and arguments against, and in a way you feel like you've participated in the what?
The election.
In the proceedings. And it prepares you for the what? For the final result. And the questions that the judges keep what? Prodding and asking. So you go to court, one, to the pressures, two, to save face. You've convinced the people that this is an election that will have to win. You've convinced people that you have the deep state behind you. When it comes to the election, deployment of resources, hayuko, nothing on the ground. There are no, what they call, what do you politicians call the people who count your votes or what? Polling agents. No polling agents. And
but his margin of loss is only 233
votes.
Yes.
So there was no clear majority. Now, in an election like that, where you are pronounced winner, it's very critical that you consider the other, because it's not a minority. You are equal, evenly divided. Now, unfortunately for us in Kenya on this occasion, I'm sorry I have to say this in the presence of a cabinet minister in Uganda, would be putting him in a difficult place for us to mention some of these things. Raila Ruto and his deputy have been belligerent towards Uhuru, Asmio, the whole formation.
Yes,
the words they are using,
the
words they are using, the statements they are issuing. Rigathi referred to Uhuru Kenyatta as a Cerelac president. They have been targeting their businesses, the milk and liquefied, purified LPG.
Liquefied petroleum gas.
Petroleum gas. Now, Raila's company, East Africa Spectre Limited, has the monopoly of supplying gas to institutions and is the biggest importer. Now, early this month, in the first week of this month, President Ruto opened a plant owned by Taifa Gas in Tanzania to come and break the monopoly.
Before I go to this, what does this mean for Kenya, both politically and economically?
Raila is a rabble-rouser. That has been his trademark. There's nothing out of sync with what he's doing that he's done in the past.
So this means nothing?
For Raila, remember he has a constituency also he answers to, the Luos. Kenyan politics is thinnicized. The Rutos excluded Luos from running the administration. So they are actually handing ammunition to Raila. And, and now that their businesses have been targeted, the milk, you remember the ban on importation of milk, is meant to break the monopoly of the Uhurus. The Uhurus have controlled 40% of Kenya's milk dairy industry, which stands as $1.5 billion.
Dr. Variomus, let me come to you as a government minister. People have been looking across the border and seeing that, one, the demonstrations by Raila Odinga and his group in Azmio were promoted, were announced, and for a large part had run almost peacefully until there was that exchange of throwing of tear gas and some arrests. But nobody died, no shooting. And people are looking across and says, can Uganda learn lessons from there? They also look down in South Africa.
I think there was a report that one person died the other day.
Well, one person, if you compare with what happens sometimes, one person might be an exception. But even in South Africa, the EFF of Malema were largely allowed to demonstrate, shut down the entire country for days. Leaders from there, the president of South Africa issued a statement, and they're only counting losses in terms of what has been lost economically, but you don't hear that in loss
Human
of
life.
Yes, and people asking a question and saying, can Uganda learn lessons of accommodation? Like Edgar has been saying, that in Kenya, he'll push this and then they'll end up with what they had ended up with Uhuru, a BBI, a negotiated settlement. Why is there no accommodation in this country between the party in power and the opposition?
Well, first, this speaks to the democratic processes in Africa, where we go into political competition and one thinks he must win. Because when you
one
go...
or both, either side think
Okay,
they must win.
oh, the computer, each computer thinks he must win. Because I think Raila has been unfortunate that he doesn't usually get extra successes when he goes for it. And I think it has become his fashion that he makes noise so there is some negotiation. Because we saw this happen when he pushed Kibaki, and then President Kibaki had to create a position of Prime Minister, which was not even provided for in the Constitution to accommodate him. We also saw it how he pushed President Ruto. And
President
then,
Uhuru.
Yeah, Uhuru, sorry. And then they had the handshake, the BBI, with even understanding that now when he's leaving, he will support him, which he did. Unfortunately, Ruto defeated him and so forth. So maybe his calculation that if he puts pressure, then there can be negotiation and he gets some space in the political equation of Kenya. But I think it is wrong. Even we see it here in Uganda, we go into competition, the opposition refuses to concede. They say President Museveni has cheated us, even when the results are glaringly clear that NRM has a very clear lead in the electoral processes, but somebody claims I won, but Museveni and NRM defeated me. So it's a challenge with the African politics that the people do not concede.
Well, Honorable Minister, Donald Trump hasn't conceded yet that he lost the election, so it's not an African thing.
It's not an African, yeah, of course, Trump being Trump, yes.
The one of Brazil is
the one of Brazil is exiled in the United States.
But it's more marked in Africa.
Bolsonaro.
Yes, even there in the West Indies, some few countries.
In Peru, they are in a huge crisis.
But it's more marked here in Africa, especially as we went into multi-party politics. Because the formula that we use, even if somebody defeats you by one vote, it's winner take it all. Unfortunately, maybe except in some countries where they have proportional representation, where people vote parties and then you share slots in the parliament especially and so forth. So it's a challenge because Raila is saying they are demonstrating because of the economy, that the prices are very high, inflation and so forth, but I don't think that's the real reason.
Is it Raparosa?
Yeah, because post-COVID, all countries are grappling with fixing the economy. So it's not a challenge of Kenya alone, but the reason is largely political. That because he lost in the political process, he wants to exert himself like he has done in the past.
Out of the rule book, of the Ugandan rule book at 2011, following the 2008-2009 global economic recession?
Even it was here during the walk to work, the reason was not necessarily the inflation and the economy, but rather it's because Dr. Kizza Besigye and FDC had lost, and it was more political than a fight for fixing the economy. So it's a replica, the same kind of story.
But
You are saying...
Sorry for
yes.
Interrupting you, Honorable Minister.
Yes.
Raila has made it clear that they will march on to State House and cause a change in government. So he's pushing for regime change.
For regime change.
And for a person who went to court and lost,
absolutely.
That's treasonous, quite frankly.
Yes. How shall we grow our democracy if you lose, you get an electoral defeat, and then you say, I'm going to march to State House and topple the government? That's treason. You are saying, you are trying to draw a parallel with Uganda, that why are we not accommodative? First of all, we have a defiant and disloyal opposition in Uganda, which even detests sitting with President Yoweri Museveni. I know in the past where the president has invited the opposition to State House, the very Ssemujju said, how can we enter State House?
But that's after saying that you'd eat them like shumbushas.
Eat them politically.
I didn't know Ssemujju was a shumbusa.
The statement of eating them like shumbushas was political, electoral eating them, electorally eating them. What the president meant was that, oh, the opposition, let's go the people. We shall eat them through the vote.
But he also came
which he did.
Yes,
which he did.
In Parliament, he said he would finish the opposition by the next election.
The NRM government would have no problem engaging the opposition and even having a negotiated settlement here and there. But
but why isn't it happening?
But the way the opposition has structured their politics is that they do not want to hear anything. You have seen the political parties refusing to go to IPOD, for instance. You have seen the summit of IPOD, when the President Museveni goes there, some party presidents say we cannot step there when the president is there. That kind of politics, which is not healthy for our country. Otherwise, for NRM to engage with any political party, we have no problem.
Okay.
The problem rather is on the side of opposition that think day and night that President Museveni must go, because their ideological positioning is that President Museveni must go. But it's Ugandans to decide who goes and who remains. So I think the problem is more with the character of the opposition in Uganda.
Honorable Ssemujju Nganda
in Kenya, Raila will find it easy to sit with President Ruto and they discuss. But here, when did Chiza Besigye meet with President Museveni ever since he started
They did that at Namugongo, the shrine for Matters Day.
And it is President Museveni who forced himself to greet Kizza Besigye, but Kizza Besigye was looking the other way. I was there.
And at the debate,
the time when
Dr.
Kizza Besigye was in Mbara, I think in the church, when the President Museveni is coming, he walked out and went.
It was actually in Rukunjiri when Museveni came.
No, there was also an incident in Mbale.
In Mbale, yes. So that kind of politics is not healthy. When we compete, it doesn't mean we are enemies. There is no reason why an opposition leader who has contested for the presidency cannot meet President Museveni and they shake hands.
But isn't it how you have turned the politics in Uganda to be? That if I have a difference in opinion with the person in government,
not us in NRM.
I'm seen as an enemy, and therefore even an enemy of the state.
Not us in NRM. We are very accommodative.
I want you to step in this discussion. What lessons? Why does the opposition in Uganda behave the way it does? In South Africa, Malema announced several times before the demonstration, set a particular date, indicated and repeated several times, it is our right to demonstrate, we shall demonstrate, we are not breaking any laws, and mobilized and said, come and shut down, but don't misbehave. In Kenya, same story. What is the difference between opposition in some of those countries and Uganda?
Seriously.
Yes, they did.
You see, the problem, let me start with the problem that Kenya is facing now. I think Ruto, in his mind, he thinks a new chapter has been opened in Kenya.
There's a new dawn.
And you can ignore campaigns and start with his inaugural speech. Telling Raila Odinga that you go and you'll be constructive opposition, you'll do this. This is your role. Forget about the state. We are now the one who run the state.
Who have been mandated to run the state.
Kenya is where it is because of negotiations. The end of Moi that came with the term limits the federal system of arrangement, was a solution to Kenya's tribal politics. I remember when I had the former Chief Justice of Tanzania here, Warioba, in one of the meetings of
Warioba was Prime Minister.
Former, yeah. He said, you see, the beauty with term limits is that if you serve 2 terms, it's a period long enough for you to deliver something, but it's also reasonably shorter for a country to tolerate a bad leader or someone they don't like. Kenya has achieved that. The trouble that Ruto has created is to think that having won the elections the way he did, the country now is under his feet. So to do any politics, to do any business now, you must go and kneel before him. I don't see Raila Odinga and other actors accepting that. People think that maybe Uhuru Kenyatta was naive. He wasn't. He wanted to create a peaceful environment for business and for the economy of the country. And that's why he accepted a BBI to allow Raila Odinga to play some role. In fact, at the beginning, he had sent him to the African Union, and he was busy. Instead of making Raila Odinga busy as Uhuru Kenyatta did, Ruto thinks that actually he must make him redundant. And he has started paying the price because of that level of arrogance, which he must have learned from his friend here. When you win an election, you've won. The others, they live in a country at your mercy. So the first lesson that we failed to learn is to negotiate our politics and then set standards like Kenya did. The Honorable Chris Wariomunsi is very happy. He feels very sweet that NRM has been winning elections, glaringly winning elections. He doesn't count the number of graves that people look at as a result of campaigns, as a result of one of the candidates called Museveni ordering the military to shoot and kill people. The last presidential elections, so from the very beginning, even what the law says you can go and consult, they were refusing. Even in Babas, by the way, even if you don't start with this one, the law says something different, NRM behaves differently. The law says you can consult, the candidate say no, you will not consult. Because yes, SJ is belligerent. What about Mbabas? Was he also belligerent for you to arrest him, for you to beat him?
What about Mao, who negotiated and is now part of the government?
That's what Museveni wants.
Yes.
Negotiation.
What's wrong with it?
Negotiation with Museveni means to give you a job, not to create a favorable environment to compete with him.
Raila did negotiate with Moi and joined his cabinet. That didn't take away his being opposition. Raila negotiated with Kibaki.
I don't want to think that someone
and worked closely with.
Yes, even negotiated with Uhuru.
Yes.
They even amended. Remember they amended their national order of protocol, creating a
they created BBI, and that was okay.
Even a convoy for him, and using all VIP facilities in the country.
The negotiation is good in Kenya,
but it's bad in Uganda.
It's bad in Uganda.
No. I started with the standards that we are set in Kenya. You'll have 2 term limits. You'll have a federal arrangement.
And then devolution of powers.
Yeah, it is a federal arrangement.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the speaking starts with the environment that you have created. I have said this many times, and let me repeat it today. We go to, and I think Williams was there, when we went for Capital Gang in the State House.
Yes, I was with you.
On our way out, I met Miguel, who was the Minister for Lands. He hugs me and he thanks me for seeing the light.
What did he think?
Because you are going to State House.
No, he thought that Museveni had also bribed him. Now I had gone to join Museveni. That's why I was in the State House.
Because you had been vowing that you will never step there. So now he sees you there.
How can I say that I will never step in the State House
You
when,
want to be president.
when I'm fighting for it?
I will never go there when President Museveni is
He wants to replace President Museveni.
No, no,
You
we're
see,
vowing that he will never go there when President Museveni is there.
if you go to State House today, or if anyone sees you coming out of State House, what do they think? In Tanzania, they go and meet. I remember the opposition going to meet Jakaya Kikwete.
No, but the present opposition is now working very closely with President Sulu.
Yeah, because she has
Very
created,
much.
she has created an environment.
The
you
of
can-
dialogue, yeah.
Yes, you can go and address rallies.
Last week, she attended a function as guest of honor for the opposition.
Yes.
But in 2011, after elections, President Museveni invited members of the opposition to come. Then the only message is, how can we come for tea? And they refused it. So
in
it's not true
Tanzania,
that Museveni was never allowed there.
you see, Chris Variomunsi, I have participated in some indirect discussion with Museveni as FDC. After the 2016 elections, we went too far, including agreeing on who should come and preside over the discussions. We had accepted the Mukapa.
Oh, from...
We had also, I think Kofi Annan was still available. We put it in writing when the former principal judge, Ogola, and his team and the
elders,
the women,
elders,
we even drafted documents. And we said, knowing Museveni, let him commit himself on the following, and then the discussions will take place. He had appointed Rukutana, Rugunda, and so I even went to meet Rugunda, Dr. Rugunda in his office. I went there. It's not that we fear to meet these people. I went to meet Dr. Rugunda and I told him...
What collapsed that engagement?
What collapsed them is because of Museveni. He had wanted to create an impression that actually there is a discussion. Because, and I kept asking when we
How
went
did
for
you collapse them?
when we went for those meetings in FDC, I kept asking, why is Museveni insisting that he wants to meet VSG, and after meeting VSG, then the discussion can start? I said, no. Why is he insisting? And VSG said, no. First of all, I'm not going to be part of that team. You be part of that team. Move the negotiations. At the time,
Dr.
at the
Besigye
time,
appointed you.
No, we are many.
You many.
We are a committee that was chaired by Wafula. Yes, we were with him in the meetings. At the time that, because there are commitments, there are things that we asked Museveni to do as a good gesture. He accepted to do them. When we said now, okay, publicly announce them, he refused.
So that this matter
You remember?
And you also denied that you engaged in any engagements with...
No. What we said we did not engage in was a meeting with Museveni. But I have spoken about this many times. You remember when the Swedish minister came here, I think it was for foreign affairs or for finance. They all coming to facilitate those discussions. But Mr. Museveni wanted simply to create an impression that I work with everybody. With the moment we refused to go for photos, for tea, he didn't find value in it. Who doesn't want it? I remember the first time Dr. Kizza Besigye stood for elections. President Museveni sought and he made a reform agenda. At that time led by Njuba, because Besigye was in exile. The proposal by Njuba and the Honorable Nyima and others was that, okay, if you want a national dialogue, let us invite everybody to participate, because this is not an affair between you and us. At that stage is when they collapsed. Because Museveni does not want to discuss anything that deals with peaceful transfer of power. You can discuss everything. If you want to be a prime minister, that you can
it's
take.
not because you put impossible conditions like refusing to accept the results of the 2016 election, for example.
We had even by
his presidency.
We had by the way agreed on an audit, like one that happened in Afghanistan. All those things Museveni had accepted. But the moment we said, okay, you make it public, then he started dragging his feet.
Did Museveni give his response to you in writing?
The documents was not between us. It was a document that was being put together by the elders and the situation room. We make our point, he makes his point. And the draft existed of the things we had asked him to do. And he had accepted. But when time came for doing them, Then he started playing games. We will want to go and discuss with Museveni. Who doesn't want a peaceful country? But Museveni thinks discussing with him means appointing URDC, and those are the things going. In fact, you remember the last meetings of IPOD.
The argument we have had sometimes, Honorable Ssemujju, is that discussions were going on well until you feared that it would get exposed, and then you ducked and said, nothing, we have never engaged with these people. Even the initiative by Conrad Nkutu and Andrew Mwenda,
those ones were not formal. Those ones were not formal. If they were deals, I was not involved. What I was involved in
is the elders,
and the situation room, and we sat as FDC under the leadership of General Muntu and appointed a team, and I was a member of that team. A formal decision.
Since it was a formal decision, who else was on that team?
Wafula was there, the Honorable Nandala, Mulongo Waswabirigwa. I don't remember the others, but it was a formal team. Even the one of Museveni was a formal team, headed by Rugonda. And we started a discussion.
Who else was on the formal team of the ruling party?
I think Rukutana was there. I don't recall the others. And we had moved. Because we said, you see, this Museveni will create an impression that people don't want to talk to him. We said, okay, there is no need for a physical meeting. These are the issues, let him respond. And they responded. The situation room kept shattering between Museveni and us until there was a fairly agreed document,
a working document.
Yeah. And that's how the minister from Sweden...
A fair draft.
A fair draft. That's how the minister from Sweden came here.
But you wanted the president to go public before you have concluded negotiations.
They were all very happy. You were not involved. You were not part of the Museveni's team. I am now speaking at someone who was involved.
Yeah, I was not part. I'm asking you.
As someone who was not part is also asking you a question.
And I'm asking you that you are saying you wanted the president to go public when you are still engaging
we had
behind the scenes.
Before
it's ready.
If you want an answer, one of the proposals from our side, first we refused the physical meeting. We said because these issues are not new and they are not limited to us. Let us write them down. Let Museveni respond to these issues. And that's the work that the elders and the situation room were doing at that time. And that's what formed the draft. We even agreed who should come, because one of the demands that we put forward, I think Kenya and Ghana did it. They even had a law that these matters that we are discussing here will go to Parliament and they will be ratified.
Okay.
And we told Museveni all these things, there should be guarantees. You're not going to engage in a discussion.
Okay, we'll be going back to the discussion of the situation in Kenya and South Africa. Let me take one or two messages and then we'll cross to Afro Mobile. Regan Aboki of Life FM in Fort Portal, I have received your message. Unfortunately, you're talking about the first topic, so I'll not be able to pick it. The Reverend Willie Muhanga, I also seen your message. Let me take a message from Dr. No, not from Doctor. Let me take a message from Chris Obore. He says, media is a cultural tool. Can BBC promote anything against British culture? Why should Ugandan media bash Ugandan culture? A definition of that Ugandan culture is also important, I think.
No, the British culture.
And this our culture the BBC, does not include homosexuality.
The BBC, the only exception they make for the BBC, you can't attack the Crown on BBC.
Okay.
You can't attack the Crown or anything that compromises the national security of the United Kingdom. But, I mean, they've talked about the invasion of British culture by the immigrants and all those things they really debate freely there.
I have many messages, but I'm not able to take all of them. We're continuing this discussion on Afro Mobile and we're continuing to focus on the demonstrations in Nairobi, Kenya, led by the opposition, and the demonstrations in South Africa. I think those are closer to what we discuss here than these other areas. We follow those a little bit more closely.
NBS Frontline.